Okay, there we go. Okay. So I want to give you the opportunity, if it's an option for you, and especially since we are a small group, if you have the option to put your hands on another device where you can see what I'm doing, but also maybe follow along on another device as we go when I show you calculators and such. That's just one idea. I don't mean to be this more of a, I don't mean this to be a full workshop, but more of a just an intro. So if you've been to a college tour, you have seen them stand up at these info sessions. They welcome you, and one of the first things you'll hear is, "We are committed to affordability," and you will say, "Oh, thank goodness." And what you don't know is they really don't mean people with jobs and homes. They don't see that, that you're not who they're trying to be affordable for. So, so that is important to know. This is a charged topic for parents. It's a very difficult, process. And I had a parent, if you've ever filled out the FAFSA, the Federal Application for Free Student Aid, which is a ghastly platform. And my sister-in-law is an IT expert and almost lost her mind trying to negotiate this platform. Another parent said to me, "I feel like the FAFSA is a sign that just says you have failed, and as your punishment for not being able to pay out of pocket for college, you will have to do this because you failed." And I said, "Oh, that's so sad and awful, and I understand." So this is a charged topic for parents because they've got to try to figure this out, and they've got to try to bring their child into the fold. And how do you do that? So this book is called The Price You Pay for College. And anything, because we are a small group tonight, anything you want, anything, you can email me. You can say, "What was the book? What was the website? Where do I go?" This book is by Ron Lieber. He's a finance columnist for the New York Times. It's called The Price You Pay for College, an entirely new roadmap for the biggest financial decision your family will ever make. And it's a very good book, and it really will guide you, through the ins and outs. But in it, he says, some parents feel embarrassed about their lack of savings or feel bad that they don't earn enough to allow their kids to choose among all colleges debt-free. Please don't. The chances are very good that you've done the best you could. You don't owe anyone an apology, least of all your child. Don't measure yourself against nearby families. Nobody really talks about this stuff, and you can't possibly know which families have generous grandparents in the picture, or who is pulling 6 figures from their home equity to pay the bills, or is in 5 figures of credit card debt. And I thought that was a profound statement, because it just seems like everybody can afford this somehow, and you don't know how you're going to, potentially. So what I want to do is, if I can do this, I want to project my screen, and I'm just going to walk you through how colleges are going to evaluate your ability to pay. Okay. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Great. All right, now I just got to be able to make it present. How's that?
Perfect.
All right. All right. So colleges will use 2 measures to evaluate a family's ability to pay. The first one is the FAFSA, Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And this is referred to as federal methodology, often in short terms as FM. It is required by every college. There's a second evaluative measure called the CSS Profile, the College Scholarship Service Profile. This will be referred to in shorthand as the Institutional Methodology, or IM. It's a proprietary platform created by the College Board. Many selective private colleges require this in addition to the FAFSA. Some public selectives require it, like UVA, Michigan. Does George Washington require the FAFSA, the profile?
No,
No, okay, lucky.
they did not. They
Right.
only do the FAFSA.
Fabulous. So these two platforms are what you're going to be dealing with. FAFSA will look at all savings and investments outside of retirement. All retirement savings are added back into the income equation. So if you save $10,000 in a 401k, that $10,000 is seen as in the income equation for college. Student earnings and assets are considered. Student earnings usually don't tilt the scale that much. Where this can really shift is student assets. Assets in a business are not considered unless you have over 100 employees, and home equity is not considered. So that's how the FAFSA is going to look at your ability to pay. CSS Profile, in addition to everything that the FAFSA looks at, will look at your home equity. They will ask how much you've saved for retirement. There are 300 questions on this platform, and the colleges get to select what they want to know. They can ask what you spent on vacations. I always joke and say that the last question on the profile is, go to your top of the top of your dresser drawer and count the change and add that back into this, because they ask a lot. I mean, they really ask a lot. They ask outright questions like, did anybody pay any bills for you last year? You know, if maybe grandparents paid for camp or something, like they want to know, you know, that. So it's pretty invasive. It is very, very hard to qualify for aid on the profile. So here's a rough thumbnail sketch, and I made these slides a year or two ago, so maybe these numbers have tweaked a tiny bit, but your first $78,000 of disposable income, you're going to be seen, about $8,000 of that is going to be seen as available for a student to go to college. That's just out of your income. After $78,000, 47% of post-tax disposable income is added to the EFC. So that's a lot. And that can take pretty average families and really make them full pay, and they're in the state of shock. 5% of parents and siblings savings in our investments are added to the EFC each year. They add 5% of home equity to your EFC each year. So it wouldn't take a lot in these real estate markets to have a chunk of real estate that you know, it's in your home. And maybe that home is anchoring your younger children to stay in their school. And, you know, so that is, I mean, I can see Maura's face, like it's a lot. Okay, so a financial aid package is structured by your expected family contribution. So I'll walk you through how to get to what's your expected family contribution. But let's just say you calculate your EFC, and you will hear that word a lot. Like if you have to go to a financial aid office for a special circumstance, they might say, what's your EFC? So if your EFC is $33,000, the first funds they're going to put in are $5,500 in subsidized or unsubsidized federal loans, and work study. Work study can range anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000. That's $41,000. Then they're going to build your package off of $41,000. So if your child's at a $75,000 a year school and they meet, oh, we got more customers. Okay. If your child is at a $41,000, is a $65,000 full need school, and the school meets 100% of your need, they will give you $24,000. Hey, Delia, can you mute yourself?
I just did. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. You're all good. No worries. Okay, so that's how your financial aid package will be structured. The EFC is $33,000. The first funds before they give you any grant money are going to be loans and a work study. Okay, so every college is required by law to provide a net price calculator that you can go with your last year's tax return and the basic thumbnail sketch of your financial situation, and you can get a sense from that college where you're going to be in terms of aid. Now, these are non-binding information. Some of them are better than others, but they're required. It is very important, and colleges can put any number they want in their calculation for books, travel, and personal expenses. If the travel expenses, if the college's travel budget is $500 and your child has to fly to campus, that's not right. So what I encourage families to do is don't look at books, travel, and personal expenses, because that's going to be unique to each situation. But to really compare apples to apples, to look at room, board, and tuition. So when you want to say, okay, this school is $55,000 and that school is $75,000, room, board, and tuition is a $20,000 difference. Don't look at the books, travel, and personal expenses, because the schools can put any number in there they want, and it just might not give you the clearest picture of your situation. All right. So that is what I'm gonna just mute in case anybody else comes. Okay, so that is how a thumbnail sketch of what this looks like. There's a couple of black holes in these calculations that I've seen families really get thrown by. The first one would be student assets. Student assets are seen as 20%. 20% of a student's assets are available every year. So if you have a student that maybe a grandparent left each grandchild, say there's 3 kids in the family and a grandparent left each grandchild $100,000 earmarked for a down payment on a house. Okay, 20% of that student's assets is seen as available every year, and 5% of the siblings' assets are seen as available. So all of a sudden, there's $30,000 if there's 3 kids in the family that is seen as available for college before they've even looked at the parents' tax return. So, all right. The other black hole I've seen for families is any sort of real estate asset that's not that liquid. Like you have, grandma's lake house and you own a share and it's worth $200,000 and you can't sell grandma's lake house, but you've got $200,000 on the table that's seen as available for college at 5% a year, that's another $10,000. So families can really maybe not feel like they have a lot of resources to bring to the college table, but all of a sudden, when they start adding all these little bits and pieces up, it's like they're full pay and they're in the state of shock. So what I wanted to do is walk you through, you say, okay, how do I find, what is my EFC? So I'm going to share my screen again. Sorry. All right, I tried to set this up and I'm hoping I did. Okay, so if you are following along on a different device or trying to figure this out, so can you guys see that? Oh, you're all muted. Okay, I'm sorry, I muted you. Okay, so I just Googled here, Big Future EFC calculator. Now, in case you don't know, Big Future is the College Board. So if you see Big Future expected family contribution calculator and click that, and it is going to say welcome, and you are going to, you don't have to sign in. You're going to click start. You're going to answer all these student status questions, which for most of us are going to be no. Next, and this is where, when I walked you through the slides and it said FM and IM, federal methodology, institutional methodology, you want to do both. Because some families have a very different EFC on the profile versus the FAFSA. And that can help you guide you, it can help guide you to, oh my gosh, I'm a FAFSA. FAFSA favors me. I need FAFSA only schools. Or I do really well in the profile. I want profile schools. So, or I'm good on both. So when you go through this, and you'll need last year's tax return, it'll ask you, some basic questions, and it'll spit out a number at the end, and that's your EFC, and it'll show you your FMEFC and your IMEFC. And you will know, like, okay, and you will probably be shocked, and nobody, even in the most modest earning circumstances, gets handed an EFC that they can afford. It's just not a number that's calculated in reality. So that's the next thing you're facing. Okay. If you have a senior this year, you will be applying. The FAFSA opens October 1st, and you would be, if you have senior this year, you will be applying with your 2020 tax return. So that's, you're applying with last year's tax return for fall of 2022. All right, so let's go to, I want to show you now, and I don't know why I picked Middlebury, but I did. You see the Middlebury? Okay, so what you're going to do here is every college has a search bar, and you're just going to go net price calculator. And these can be hard to find. They're required to have them, but they can be kind of hidden away. And it'll say net price calculator, and estimate your cost, Middlebury offices and services, estimate your cost. And here we are, net price calculator. You click that and it will ask you, and you can walk through, and they say it takes 10 minutes to get a sense of and every college has to have this. So you can calculate your EFC. You can go to college net price calculators, try to get a sense of where they might see your ability to pay. If you are in a divorce situation, the FAFSA for right now only takes the parent where the child lives the most, not even where they're like, who has custody, where does the child live the most? And they only count that parent, like the one parent. They don't look at the assets of the other parent. The profile wants everybody's everything. And I've seen kids, maybe one parent is a modest earner, but the other parent is married to a high earner, and that can really upset the apple cart at a profile school. So when you calculate your expected family contribution, if you are looking at a FAFSA school and you have more than one child in college at the same time, they're going to take your EFC, and let's say your EFC was $80,000, and they're going to cut that, they're going to divide by 2 because you have 2 children in college, and they're going to say, okay, you can afford, you have $80,000, you can afford $40,000 per child, and we're going to build your package off of $40,000. Split your EFC between your 2 children. On the profile, they will take 60% of your EFC. So if you have an $80,000 EFC, they'll say you can pay $48,000 for each child. In 2 years, that is going away. They revamped the financial aid, the whole FAFSA, and in the fall of 2024, that will be over. And your EFC, whatever, if you have an $80,000 EFC, it's $80,000 per kid. So sometimes when families have 2 children in college, or 3, they can actually do okay with some of these formulas, but that's going away. So the other thing is, I was going to tell you one more thing about this. The EFC, when this change takes place, will be called the Student Aid Index, but it's really kind of the same thing. It's just called something different. Okay, so once you've kind of gotten your head around whatever your EFC is, whatever number they've spit out that you can't actually afford, there are very few FAFSA only full need schools. So let's say you had a very low EFC, say your EFC was $10,000. Very few FAFSA only schools are going to meet your full need. The profile schools are the ones that meet 100% of what they call demonstrated need. So if your EFC is $10,000 and you apply to a profile school that it meets 100% of demonstrated need, they are basically going to give you the rest after some student loans and some work study in most cases. The problem with the profile schools are twofold. One, they tend to be really, really selective. And the second piece is it's the profile. It's very hard to generate need if you own a home and have a job and have any, just some of the things, circumstances that I mentioned that all of a sudden it tilts your EFC. So let's take a look at, I wanted to show you, how do you're probably like, well, what's a FAFSA school? What's a profile school? How do I know? Well, one way to go would be every school, if you were to, let me go back to Middlebury. If we were to go back to Middlebury, I'm sure, affording Middlebury, estimate your costs, financial aid examples, types of aid, financial tools, it would probably be in here somewhere. Are they a FAFSA? Are they a profile? When they say they meet 100% of demonstrated need, I'm sure they're a profile school. So what I wanted to do was go back to the College Board site. So let's go here. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to look at one of my favorite schools. Not one of my favorite schools, but I love Union College in upstate New York because they are 100% demonstrated need school, and you can get in. It's like not Amherst or Princeton. So if you look, Union College is here, and I'm still on the Big Future website where you calculated your EFC, and you go to costs, and you go down, and you can kind of see this is helpful. They're showing their tuition is $61,308. Their housing is $15,000. So this is going to be $75,500 before your child has bought a notebook. And if you come down here, you can see 54% of the kids at Union College receive some financial aid. The freshmen with need, 99% of them got it, and the school met 100% of their need, and that's amazing. Now, I want to bring your attention to one more thing. Under here, it says non-need-based aid. Non-need-based aid is a merit scholarship. So if you don't generate need, if you have 3 kids and you don't generate need, and you don't have $1 million for college, you're going to be looking for schools that might give your child a merit scholarship. So here you can see the average non-need based aid is almost $15,000. So that is nice because Middlebury is probably not giving any non-need based aid. So this is where you start to sort this out and go, okay, who's going to give my kid potentially what? So this is Union. I want to just show you what is on nothing. Like, I don't want to bash any college, but I will bash Colgate. It's a fine school. But what blows my mind is at Colgate, and if you were to look at any private school, probably they have 50 to 55% of their kids getting financial aid. At Colgate, 32% of the kids receive any financial aid. 68% of those kids just pay. And they meet 100% of need, which is nice, good for them. Non-need based aid, nothing. They're not giving any scholarships. So that's the type of school where you could find yourself a full pay family, not particularly comfortable paying $75,000 a year and not getting any merit scholarship. And, you know, I can't imagine what the vibe on that campus is like when 70% of the kids are just paying out of pocket. What it's like to be one of the kids that's not. So there's that. So those are two profile schools that meet 100% need. So what if you say, okay, I am not a profile pay family. I'm a FAFSA family because maybe we have a divorce, or that's what favors me. So what I wanted to do was let's look at let's just look at Clemson. Like, that's a public school. It's just I don't mean to say just a FAFSA school. They're only using the FAFSA to why is this not coming up? Okay, Clemson. We go over here to costs, and you can see, you know, in-state tuition, God bless them, you know, $13,000. So out-of-state tuition is $36,000, and housing is about $12,000. So right out of the gate, we've gone from $75,000 at Union and Colgate to, you know, if you had to pay out of pocket, it's $48,600 and change. So when you look, and this is going to be a FAFSA only school, so 42% of the students receive financial aid. Freshmen with need that received aid is 81%. They meet 48% of your need. So let's just say your need was $20,000. You knew, okay, my EFC's, my need, the gap between my need and the tuition on my EFC is 20,000. They're going to meet on average about 48% of that. So these schools, they cost less. The FAFSA schools can be cheaper. They don't meet 100% of need, and non-need based aid at Clemson is about $5,000. So you can say, okay, well, if my kid got a scholarship at Clemson, maybe I'd be in the low 40s. So that is what you need to look at. Now, the thing I will tell you is you have to just be careful, especially at some of the public schools. They are like some public schools, like the UC system is looking to use out-of-state kids to come in and help fund their programs. So that is, you know, I had this mom call me. She called me like the Bronx. I don't know where she got. She like Googled. She called me. She was a single mom with twins with a 0 EFC, and she's like, they want to go to University of California. I was like, oh no. They have to find, and they had an abusive high earning father. So like, I'm like, these kids need FAFSA schools, or there are a handful of schools that are profile schools that don't require the parent. So anyway, I was like, this woman is going down a road that's going to be a disaster. So if you are sitting here going, how do I figure out what I'm going to do? I don't want to pay $80,000 a year. I don't really qualify for any aid. What am I going to do? Well, the first thing to do is some schools have a lower starting point. A lot of public flagships have a lower starting point. There's some private schools. You look at Marist, or Union or Colgate, or 75,000. I would guess like a private school like Marist is maybe 55 to 60. So again, finding some schools with some lower starting points. That's the first step. The second step is, where is your child going to get some merit money? Your child is going to get merit money where they are in the top quartile of test scores and GPAs. Your child is going to get money where they are a reach for the school. The school's leveraging their institutional funds to get money, to get your child to come. These schools have sophisticated, complex algorithms. They know exactly how many dollars they have to give to a certain kid in a certain zip code to get them to come. And a lot of these schools, instead of giving one kid an $80,000 a year scholarship, they give 4 kids $20,000 scholarships, and each of those kids brings 60 with them. So they're literally leveraging their institutional aid to bring in tuition dollars. Take a long look at your child's AP, IB, dual enrollment credit. See what they have. Because maybe as you're really kind of making hard decisions about schools, maybe they can get through a school in 7 semesters that they can't depending upon where they are. And all you got to do is Google. I mean, if I come in here and do Rutgers AP credit, I mean, all you got to do is pop in and like instantly you've got, you know, what credits they can get if they have any IB, AP, dual enrollment, whatever. So you might be able to say, wow, you know, this school will give you 15 credits, that school will give you 6. The 15 credit school might be cheaper in the long run. Take a long look at your state schools. Your child, I mean, I teach biotechnology high school, and if you come in the spring, it's like a quarter of the senior class is going to Rutgers, and it's like, why are they all going to Rutgers? And because they're going for, they've gotten meaningful scholarships. They're going to Rutgers for nominal amount of money to go to the honors college. So it's the type of thing like, you know, can you go, if you're going to Rutgers for $15,000 a year, how could you ever say yes to Cornell at 80? You know, like you can go to Rutgers for 4 years. I mean, you know, I don't need to do the math for you guys. So taking a long look at your public schools and trying to find an option that works. Discuss this early and often with your kids. Do not wait till the day before you have to make a deposit on May 1st of their senior year. They should be involved in this conversation. They should understand. And I will go back to the Ron Lieber quote, which says, you've done the best you could. You know, don't measure yourself against other families. Don't feel embarrassed. There's a fabulous, there was a columnist, I'll show you her book in a minute. She profiled a couple years ago this amazing story. Family had one kid got into Northwestern, their dream school. The parents had the $300,000 sitting there ready to go. They ended up getting a full ride to the University of Pittsburgh. And the parents said, okay, well, guess where you're going? You're going to Pittsburgh. And the father wrote a whole piece for the column about how, you know, somebody had to be the adult in the room and say, we're not doing Northwestern. And the father got just bashed in the columns. And, you know, he said, I didn't know my kid was going to get into Northwestern, and I didn't know they were going to get a full ride to Pitt. So, and they did a profile like 5 years later, the kid was in a PhD program, you know, it all worked out. But this is a really important conversation to have and include your child in. You know, and again, this is your family's private business, and you need to figure this out, what is best for all of you. And when I work with kids, I'll say to them, you know, they don't understand the difference between $40,000 and $70,000. But, you know, if there's 3 kids in the family and I say, hey, you know what? If you guys can all go to college for $200,000 instead of $1 million, like if you each go to college for 2, that's 600, and now your parents have your whole family prospers with another $400,000 for whatever, you know, and they're like, oh, like, because, you know, 40 to 70 is like monopoly money, but 600 to $1 million, they're like, oh, that's something. The other thing I would say is, if your child just takes out the Stafford loans, the Stafford loans are $5,500 for freshman and sophomore year and $7,500 for junior, senior year. And that's $26,000. But if they're not subsidized, that interest accrues the minute the loans are taken out. And so by the time your child's done, they're probably approaching $30,000. And I think the last time I checked, the 10-year payment on that is $350 a month to get those loans paid from 22 to 32. So, you know, something to talk about and say, okay, and you know, the adults in the room understand that $26,000 against these tuition bills is a drop in the bucket. I mean, $26,000 doesn't get you that far on a $300,000 4-year undergraduate degree. So that is everything I wanted to present. I I would be happy to unmute you all if I could figure that out. Cancel. Don't want you muted. Can you guys unmute yourself?
I did. I unmuted.
Okay. So what I wanted to know, oh, I know, I wanted to show you. So, okay, this book.
Yep.
Not to be missed. The Just the Lingo book that also came out last year really walks you through how certain schools leverage their funds to draw in a class. Also very informative. And then the last book, this woman, Lynn O'Shaughnessy, has a website called The College Solution. She has this book, and this will walk you through the ins and outs of the financial aid. And she also runs parent classes. So if you were like, you know, wanted to actually take a little class, you actually could. She does a class for professionals. I actually did her professionals class. So she has a very good website, like with questions, and she was the one who had the family with the kid at Northwestern, and it was very, very informative. So those are some good resources. Does anybody have any specific questions? Did I go too fast? Anything that I can answer about anything?
No. I mean, I have experience obviously with the FAFSA. My oldest one, he went to a public institution, obviously University of Washington. So it was, they didn't offer us any, and it's unfortunately, their University of Washington is one of those schools somewhat similar to the University of California system, that they depend on the out-of-state people to pay. They're very, they're not giving money out. They give it to their own, state, and fully respect that in schools as a whole. But it is frustrating, when your student is a, high achieving
sure
student.
No doubt. I'm just curious, do you remember what like last year room board and tuition was at UW?
Everything was about 45.
Okay.
Last year, which was 2019 to 2020. I'm sorry, 2020 to 2021. Yeah.
Charlie and Arthur were the same year, Jen, and Charlie's last year at UVM was 58,000. Yeah. But they do offer merit money. So we did have, a break on that.
But I will say they did, my second one, who's at the one is in DC at George Washington, which is a private school and, is very expensive. They also, one of the big things they ask, and you have to have proof of, like, they have to be in contact with University of Washington to say that Arthur was actually a student. In order for them to give us money, they said the other school has to be, and I had to go after University of Washington, 2 or 3 times, like,
to document.
Fill this form out. I've sent it to you now twice.
Wow.
I've got to send it, and send it to George Washington, because they kept holding the money. And that interest comes on us.
Yeah. Jen, any questions on your part, Jen?
Well, I'm a complete newbie, so I don't know any of this. Are there any, like, I was kind of reading about how certain states will give other states in-state tuition.
Yes.
But do we not, New Jersey doesn't participate with anybody?
There are a couple of schools. Western Connecticut will give in-state tuition to New Jersey kids. University of Maine will allow you to come for the cost of your state flagship. There are schools like University of Utah is not strict about establishing residency. Idaho State, like so there are
basically nowhere that we're going to want to go.
Well, I think that it depends. I mean, like a lot of kids might think they hadn't gone to heaven at University of Maine, but again, if you want to be in the sunshine, no. That most schools most states have closed that loophole, but there are a few. So you might find, and what you will also find at some schools will offer you an in-state, like a merit scholarship where you can come in state. So it's not impossible.
And merit scholarships, I think, are very important. Like I never, unfortunately, this school, especially with my first one, they didn't really make it clear how important and honestly, relatively easy to get a merit scholarship if the kids do what they're supposed to do, which one of them was take the PSAT and take it seriously.
Mhm.
Right, which nobody does unless, like they all think, oh, this is supposed to, they don't know what the PSAT is when they're taking it. So
Right, and they care less, so
Right.
that's a struggle. But merit scholarships, they are there. It's just you have
So
to.
that's the other thing, a lot of parents say to me, where can we get scholarships? The most meaningful money you will get are
Mm.
from merit scholarships from the college. I mean, running around and chasing $500 scholarships here and there, look, I'm not saying that, you can, but a lot of parents say, where should I be applying for scholarships? And I'm like, I don't know, like the college, I mean, that's where the most meaningful money is going to come from. The other thing I'll tell you is if you do qualify for need and you win the $2,000 essay about something that you get money, that might offset your merit scholarship. The school has the right to take that and offset their costs.
So
I didn't
when
know
does
that.
when does the merit come in? Like, is it after you've narrowed down to like 5 different schools you want to go
The merit
to?
will often come with your acceptance
Okay.
or shortly thereafter. Shortly thereafter. So, like you have a sophomore, this is the time to start having the conversation.
Mhm.
This is the time to start having the conversation. And the problem is with some of these private schools, like I was talking to a family just socially, and they were looking at like an $80,000 school. And this was last year, the kid was a senior, and a public flagship that was going to be 40. And I'm like, well, they go to public flagship twice,
Mhm.
2 times. And maybe the private school's better, but I doubt it's double as good.
Right. Right.
So it really does behoove everybody to have a careful eye on that. This is a business transaction. And I'll
Mhm.
tell you what else. You cannot discharge student loan debt. You cannot discharge student loan debt. And I was talking to somebody I met, and they have the parents have $300,000 worth of parent loans.
Wow.
2 kids, and those are at 7%. So they're
Wow.
$21,000 a year just to keep those not increasing. So once you get in this system and start borrowing, it is not a fun system. And a lot of parents say to me, well, I want my kid to have skin in the game. And I'm like, let me just tell you, this is not a fun system to be in. So maybe there's another way to get some skin in the game. But the whole Fannie Mae, FAFSA, I made my loan payment. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. There's nowhere to really go with that when there's a problem. So it's just, to really have an eye on, okay, what is affordable for us and where does that get us? And then say, okay, are we going to have to borrow? Okay, what does that look like? How much? And just be really prudent about it.
Mhm.
And again, kind of like why I read that Ron Lieber quote from that book saying, don't worry about what everybody else is doing. You don't know, what it looks like.
Right.
So if you want anything, if you need any links, if you want me to show you anything, just shoot me an email.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
I really appreciate it.
Guys, you're welcome.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.